Hey everybody, so you guys made it to day 5 of digital learning. You're doing awesome. I'm so excited. The number of people that have been online, the people that have been asking me questions, keep it up. So I know that the test that was online, that was your midterm, people didn't do so well, the people who did it, and I feel like we could use a little bit more review before you all go and try to take it again. So we're going to break it up into some small chunks, review some topics, and then I'll re-release the test to you in a few days. So the thing I want to go over today is your trig functions. So remember your trig functions, we can remember those with the abbreviation SOHCAHTOA. So the S, the C, and the T stand for the first letter of the trig function. So sine, cosine, tangent. The O, the H, and the A all stand for opposite or adjacent or hypotenuse. So opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent, hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. Okay, so they kind of help you remember because sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And that should be cosine, sorry. And tangent equals opposite over adjacent. And what is opposite and adjacent depends on where you're at in the triangle. Your hypotenuse is always going to be the same. So let's look at a couple of problems. So here we need to find the approximate value of x. X is right here. I have an angle that is 38 degrees and a hypotenuse that is 14. I know that's the hypotenuse for two reasons. It's the longest side, but more importantly, it's across from the right angle. So this is going to be my H, no matter what. Next, I have to figure out what sides I have and what I need so that I can pick a trig function. Well, if this is my reference angle right here, the X is right next to the reference angle. It actually makes up one of the sides of the reference angle. So that means it's the adjacent side. So I need the trig function that uses adjacent and hypotenuse. So that's not sine, that's cosine. So I'm going to set up a cosine function and I'm going to fill in, okay, so cosine 38 degrees equals adjacent over hypotenuse, so x over 14. Now I like to leave my cosine until the last thing and then put everything in the calculator at one time. If you would prefer to go ahead and just figure out what cosine 38 is, just leave a lot of decimals. So that's what I'm going to do here. Cosine 38, if you put that in your calculator, that comes out to 0.788011. Sorry, that 7's a little wacky looking. And that's going to be equal to x divided by 14. So now I want to solve for x. So I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 14. So I've got my original value of cosine of 38, and I'm going to multiply by 14. And that tells me, when I do that, that 11.0322 is approximately the value of x. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing down here. Here's my angle. I have my side that's opposite from the right angle. So this is my hypotenuse, always, always across from the right angle. But this time, the side that I'm missing is not part of my 47-degree angle. the angles are always going to be made up of your hypotenuse and the adjacent side. So this would be my adjacent side. That doesn't really factor into what we're doing because I have the hypotenuse. I want the opposite side. So I can't use cosine again because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and the adjacent side isn't really important to me. So I'm going to look for what is opposite and hypotenuse, and that is sine. So I'm going to use the sine function here. Sine 47 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse, so x over 12. And so now I can go ahead and put that sine 47 in my calculator, and I get approximately 0.731354. So notice I used a lot of decimal places. If you're going to put this in your calculator right away, make sure you use a lot of decimal places. So that's going to equal x divided by 12. So now I want to multiply by 12 on both sides of this equation. So 12 times 0.731354 equals x times 12 divided by 12. So that gives me 8.77624 is the approximate value of x. All right, so let's do one more, and then I've got a little word problem for you down here. So again, here's my angle. Across from my 90-degree angle is going to be my hypotenuse. My angle is made up by the hypotenuse and the adjacent side. So this is going to be my adjacent side, which leaves this over here to be the opposite side. Well, in this case, I don't have the hypotenuse like I did in these first two. What I have is the opposite side, and then I want the adjacent side. So the two important pieces of this for me are the opposite and the adjacent. Well, if I go back up here and I look at my trig functions, tangent involves opposite and adjacent. So I'm going to do tangent 62 degrees equals 8 divided by x. Oh, this is a little different too because the x is in the denominator this time. So I'm going to go ahead and evaluate my tangent 62, and I get 1.88073 equals 8 over x. Now, I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by x, and that gives me 1.88073 times x equals 8, but now I still have to get the x by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 1.88073. And that tells me that x is approximately 4.25368. Now, back here, we could have done all of this a slightly different way. So this, we're going to call this a shortcut. Okay, instead of taking the long path through the woods, we're going to take the shortcut. So what I can do is I can switch these two things. So I'm going to put x equals 8 divided by tangent 62 degrees. And if I go ahead and put that in my calculator, I get this same exact answer. So if you prefer to just solve the way that you know how to solve, keep doing that. If you remember that when you're solving for a denominator, you can always just flip these two things around, then go ahead and do that too. Okay, last problem. All right, Jesus is planning to cut down a tree in his backyard. He wants to be sure the tree will not hit his house. That's important. He stands 38 feet from the tree and measures the angle from the ground to the top of the tree. He finds that it is 72 degrees. If Jesus's house is 98 feet from the tree, does he have enough room to safely cut down the tree without hitting his house? This is a very important problem. It could cause some serious damage to his house if he hits the tree. And you actually can buy little devices that, if you're standing on the ground, will help you measure to the top of, figure out what the angle is to like the top of a pole or the top of a tree. For this very reason, so you can cut down trees in your backyard and not hurt your house or your neighbor's house. But anyway, so I'm going to do like just a quick little drawing. So here's Jesus's house. I'm not an artist, people. All right, and somewhere, all right, so Jesus's house, it says his house is 98 feet from the tree. So here's the tree. We're going to call it a pine tree of some kind. It's a tree. So this whole distance from his house to the tree is 98 feet. Okay, so Jesus stands 38 feet from the tree. So that's kind of like here. And this is 38 feet. And he measures to the top of the tree and finds out that this angle right here is 72 degrees. So what we want to know is this side of our triangle. We want to know how tall is the tree. We want to know if when that tree gets cut down, this drawing is not to scale, by the way. If that tree gets cut down and it falls, is it going to clear his house or is it in danger of hitting his house? Okay. So we've got our drawing. What I see is a triangle right here. So I'm going to pull that triangle out and just draw the triangle to kind of eliminate the distractions. So this angle right here is 72 degrees. This distance down here is 38 feet. And we want to know this side. Most importantly, we want to know, is this side less than 98 feet? So here's my angle. This would be my right angle. So this is my hypotenuse over here. The angle is made up by the hypotenuse and the adjacent side. And so this would be the opposite side. Okay, so now, which trig function involves opposite and adjacent? Well, I just used that one right here. That was tangent. So I'm going to write my function, tangent 72 degrees equals, let's call this x, equals opposite over adjacent. And so if I calculate out tangent 72, I get 3.07768 equals x divided by 38. So I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by 38. That's a multiplication dot, by the way. And what I find is that x is approximately 116.952 feet. So I have an answer. I know how tall my tree is. My tree is approximately 116.952 feet. But the question is, does he have enough room to safely cut down the tree without hitting his house? So, unfortunately, this tree is 116 feet tall, almost 117 feet tall, and his house is only 98 feet away. So if this tree were to come crashing down, it would crash down and kill Jesus's house. So he should probably not cut that tree down himself. He should maybe hire some professionals to come and cut it down in pieces and stuff. All right, you all are doing really well. I'm going to put up a couple of questions that I would like for you to answer, a discussion question, and then a couple of questions. It says a quiz, it's not a quiz, but that's how I have to set it up so that you can answer questions and I can grade them. So keep up the good work, y'all. You're doing a wonderful job. And any of the questions that you do, hint, hint, on the computer for me, you should probably pull out your study guide if you have it. If not, write on a sheet of paper and write down the work and stuff for those questions. Just a suggestion. Okay, you all are doing great. I'll talk to you